All right, welcome to The Explainer. Today we're diving into the story of one of the most famous heroes of all time, Achilles. You hear the name and you immediately think ultimate warrior, right? A legend whose name has literally echoed for 3,000 years. But his story, it isn't just about strength. It's about a rage. A rage so powerful it became the starting point for one of the greatest epics ever written. And this is what's so fascinating. Homer's incredible epic, the Iliad, it doesn't kick off with the Trojan War itself. Not with the abduction of Helen, not with the launch of 1,000 ships. No, it begins with this line. The entire story, this massive epic, starts with the explosive, world-altering rage of its greatest warrior. So that one question, it unlocks everything. It tells us this is a story about a hero who is so much more than just a famous heel. We're talking about a man of incredible passion, of immense pride, and, ultimately, profound grief. So to really get to the bottom of this, we've got to go back, way back, to the beginning. Okay, so to really understand Achilles, his power, that monumental pride, we have to start with his origin story. Because you see, he wasn't exactly human. So check this out. Achilles was a demigod. His dad, a mortal king named Peleus. His mom, Thetis, a powerful immortal sea goddess. And this is absolutely crucial. This lineage put him right in the middle of two different worlds, the mortal world of death and glory, and the timeless eternal realm of the gods. He was stuck between them right from the start. And here's where it gets really interesting. His very existence was basically a strategic move by the gods. You've got Zeus, the king of the gods, and his brother Poseidon, and they both wanted to be with Thetis. But there was a prophecy. A pretty scary one, actually. It warned that her son would grow up to be greater than his own father. Now, if you're Zeus, that's the last thing you want to hear, right? So, fearing they'd be overthrown, they cooked up a plan. Marry her off to a human. That way, her son's greatness couldn't threaten. Okay, so we all know the phrase Achilles' heel, right? We use it all the time. But the actual story behind it, well, it's a lot more complicated and way more recent than you probably think. The version of the story most of us know, it says his mother was desperate to cheat fate. And this version, by the way, comes much later, from a Roman poet writing centuries after the original Greek story. Anyway, the legend goes she dipped baby Achilles into the river Styx, the one whose waters made you invincible. But of course, she had to hold him by something. And that one spot, his heel, was the only part left mortal. But, and this is probably the most important thing to get about him, in the original story, in the Iliad, there's no mention of any of that. None. Homer's Achilles wasn't invincible. He could be cut, he could be wounded, just like any other warrior. And honestly, that makes his skill on the battlefield even more incredible. It wasn't magic. It was pure, raw, unmatched talent. So all of this unique background, it sets up the central conflict of his entire life. A choice he was forced to make about his own destiny. And it's a choice that, frankly, no one should ever have to face. Because he was the son of a goddess, his mother Thetis knew his future, and she laid out two paths for him. Just two. Path 1, stay home, avoid the war completely, live a long, happy, peaceful life, and be forgotten. Path 2, go to Troy, become the greatest hero the world will ever know, and die young. I mean, what a choice. He chose glory. He chose to be a legend. Knowing full well it meant an early death, he made that fateful decision. He would go to Troy and make sure his name was remembered forever. Now, his mom, of course, was not having any of this. She tries to cheat fate. She actually hides him on an island, disguised as a girl, of all things. But the Greeks knew they couldn't win the war without him, so they send in the cleverest guy they know, Odysseus. He shows up pretending to be a salesman. And here's the brilliant part. Among all the jewelry and fancy clothes, he places a shield and a spear. Then, someone sounds an alarm, and what does Achilles do? His warrior instinct just takes over. He grabs the weapons, and boom, his cover is blown. And that brings us right back to Troy, and to the central theme of the whole Iliad. We're not just talking about anger here. We're talking about a terrible, all-consuming, world-changing rage. So let's walk through this, because it's a tragic chain of events. His first rage, that was all about pride. His commander, Agamemnon, dishonors him. So he just says, "That's it, I'm out," and refuses to fight. But that rage, it completely transforms into something much, much darker. His closest companion, Patroclus, is killed by the Trojan prince Hector. And just like that, Achilles' grief boils over into pure, horrifying vengeance. Losing Patroclus just unleashed something in him, a grief-fueled vengeance that was absolutely terrifying. I mean, just think about what he says to Hector. He's so far beyond reason, so consumed by fury, that he's talking about literally eating him raw. At this point, he's not fighting for glory anymore. He's fighting just to cause as much pain as possible to the man who took his friend. And his fury was just absolute. He doesn't just hunt down and kill Hector, the greatest hero of Troy. He then does something unthinkable. He ties Hector's body to his chariot and drags it around the city walls for days. This was a shocking, horrifying act that broke every single rule of honor, even by the incredibly brutal standards of ancient war. So after choosing that path of glory and an early death, after unleashing all that terrible power, Achilles' own tragic end was, well, inevitable. It was always just a matter of time. And just as the prophecy foretold, his life was cut short before the city of Troy finally fell. And the irony? He was killed by Paris. Yeah, the very same prince who started the whole 10-year war in the first place by taking Helen. And this is where it all comes together so perfectly. That later myth about his invulnerability, it was fitted right onto the story of his death. An arrow, guided by the god Apollo, no less, finds the one tiny spot on his body that was left vulnerable. And just like that, you have the powerful, neat and tidy story of the Achilles heel that we all know so well. So while Achilles the man may have died on the battlefield at Troy, Achilles the story, the idea of Achilles, well, that became truly immortal. I mean, just think about it. His legacy has echoed down through thousands of years. It's in our everyday language with the phrase Achilles heel. It's literally a part of our bodies, the Achilles tendon. For the ancient Greeks, he felt so real they actually built temples and worshipped him. And of course, his complicated, tragic, fascinating character is still inspiring stories today, from best-selling books to huge Hollywood movies. So in the end, the story of Achilles isn't just some simple fable about a hero's one white spot. It's really this profound, timeless look at how our greatest strengths, in his case, his incredible skill and his deep love for his friend, are so often tied to our most destructive flaws. So was he a hero defined by his strength or a tragedy defined by his rage? You know, there's no easy answer to that, and that right there is exactly why his story will never, ever die.